Right, welcome back, and this is where we pick the conversation, our big conversation of today. We talk about matters to do with Shakahola, Shoker, and I'm glad, of course, you're following us from wherever you are. This is a great conversation to pick it over from. Now, the barbaric, heinous, and inhuman act of Shakahola massacre is something you are more likely to see in a movie, not in our daily lives. The Shakahola massacre, perpetrated by self-proclaimed Pastor Paul Mackenzie of New Life International Church, continue to raise questions on the motive of killings, where were the security agencies in the area, and whether we will ever know the full extent of what transpired, even as the search for survivors and answers continue. Now joining us in the discussion is Executive Director for Haki Africa, Hussein Khalid. Of course, thank you so much, of course, for making time to speak to us on this very important discussion that we are having today. Well, what has transpired in Shakahola, in simple word, even some describe it, it can only be seen in a movie. It is a disaster. And this begs the question, how did it miss us?
That's a very good question, Auma, and it's a question that even us as Haki Africa have been pondering about, because as you are aware, in any given part of this country, we're supposed to have state authorities, at different levels in charge of any given region in this country. If you look at the national level, of course, you have the Ministry of Interior. If you go down, you have the regional commissioners who are supposed to be in charge of their regions. If you go further down to the county level, you have the county commissioner. And even below that, the county commissioner, you have the DCCs, the ACCs, and it goes down to the chief, the sub-chief, and even further down to wazee wa mitaa or village elders. We also have community policing. We also have nyumba kumi. So the million-dollar question that you're asking is, and we agree with you, where were all these structures when people were being led to their deaths by starvation, when people were being buried in mass graves, children were missing from communities? Now we can confirm, they've lost their lives. So it's a very, very big question, and this basically shows that as a country, we do not yet have total control of what is happening, particularly at the grassroots level.
All right.
I think mostly we know what is happening at the national level, at best at the county level, but especially in rural communities, it is very evident now that the authorities do not have the full details of what is happening. We're not talking about one person who died and got buried, or 10, or 50. This is over 100, and we have not even uncovered all the mass graves.
All right.
Yes.
Well, before we'll come to the security agencies later on, but as a man who has been on the ground, of course, and you have been in the front line, we have seen you during the rescue mission. Can you paint us a picture of what you are not aware right now, according to our assessment?
Well, right now, there is what we know, but there is also, as you've asked, what we are not fully aware about. First of all, what we don't know is how many people are still holed up in that forest, who may still be fasting, who may still be dying, who may still be buried, the same way as their fellow followers were buried. From what we understand is that the followers were hundreds. The ones that have been rescued are more or less than 40. The ones that have been buried and exhumed, maybe 110. So at most, what we can account for is 150 if, we extend it so much, 200. And, from the estimations of those who have been, rescued, their relatives, they're saying there are a few hundreds more. So whether they have escaped that area, whether they're still within that area, that is something we still don't know. The second issue that we're still not aware of is how many have died so far and have been buried. Because the area in which the government has concentrated on in the last 1 or 2 weeks, if you follow closely what the followers are telling us, is that that is just one of 2 or 3 other areas. And even in that one area, not all the mass graves have been opened up. So we still don't know how many remain buried. And as you said when you are introducing the program, will we ever get to know the extent to which this particular saga, went? Probably not. There's a very high possibility we may never come to understand the magnitude, because some of those graves, especially after this thing has been brought to light, there's a very high possibility they have been buried secretly and we may never get to know where they were.
All right. There is a question that actually is troubling many. When to fast until you die, that is something that it's out of reason, out of logic. But, the story is all about the two sides of the coin.
Yes.
We have at one hand the followers and, of course, the perpetrator who is Mr. Paul Mackenzie. But is it an issue or rather a case of brainwash or lack of education, or just ignorant? Because we have to look at the both sides of the coin.
That's a very good question, Auma, and we have to interrogate that, and I hope that the National Counterterrorism Center and the Anti-Terror Police Unit, because they have termed this now to be a terror-related incident, will be investigating. But yes, it's hard to imagine a human being starving themselves to death, because this is what we are told, they were told, that this is not suicide. You're not taking a rope and tying it around your neck and hanging yourself. You're not taking a gun and shooting yourself. You're actually in worship. And that if you die, because fasting is a form of worship, if you die, you've died while in a form of worship, So the indoctrination, from what we understand, did not just happen within a week. This is something that was, worked on for years. These people were informed about this, they were told. That's why even those that we rescued, according to us, we feel we rescued, when we were bringing them, for first aid to assist them, they were adamant, they were like very categorical, they don't need any help, that they want to go, they want to ascend to heaven, that we are actually blocking them from their lifetime desire, to go to heaven. And I remember one lady, we even tried to, because she was extremely weak, almost on the verge of death. And we were trying to make her understand that we are trying to save you. And we tried to put some glucose water, because you can't feed her after she stays hungry for, first aid. You can't do that. You have to slowly give her water first, glucose, so that she gets in. And she sealed her lips tight. And she refused any assistance. So we tried to, but you could tell she is, her lips, she doesn't want to open, because she's very clear in her mind that she wants to die and go to heaven.
All right.
And she's not the only one. There were others also where we went to rescue and said, we have come to spoil for them, that we are people who are against the Lord. They are supposed to go to heaven, and we are stopping them from going to heaven. So you're right, whether it's called brainwash, whether it's called indoctrination, but it is something that has very much sunk in them. And even those that have been rescued, even now, a few days later, I understand some are saying they want to go back to fasting, that they want to, continue with what they were doing so that they can go to heaven. So it's a very big question we are all asking ourselves. How did this man convince, and you're not talking of 5, 10, 15 people, we are talking of hundreds of people, to starve to death? If it was a one-off incident, you die, you shoot yourself, you're dead. But this is someone who will starve for several days, meaning they're going to see death coming. And they still believe in it, and they continue to do it. And the other question you've asked, is this a case of illiteracy? Not really, because initially, even for us, because when we broke this story to the world, even us, we thought this guy was preying on some rural folks, families or individuals who are not very much exposed. Only later on to realize that some of his followers were GSU, former GSU officers, airline crew, air hostess. There were some Nigerians there. There was a medical officer. So it wasn't just, people you could term as illiterate. Some of them were very much exposed. Some of them were very well educated, and they were all, convinced to be part of this cult.
All right. According to autopsy report, of course, on the ongoing, the operation that has been done just to try and determine what actually could have transpired. According to the findings, one of them, especially to the minors, there is a case of suffocation. We have some, probably they might have been strangled. Does this, point to the inhuman aspect of it, and why would you subject a person, who is not willing, of course, to buy to your doctrine or the religion that you subscribe to?
Yeah, so most of those who are strangled and suffocated, according to the autopsy reports, are children. And when we spoke to some of those that were rescued and we were asking them what was happening, how did this happen, some of them did mention to us that, when someone is in that fasting, when it becomes too hard, now you're almost on the verge of death, it's possible for someone to change their minds. Right. Death is not anything pleasant. Even someone who puts a rope around his neck and is hanging, when it's now really squeezing your neck, one would try to pull themselves up. So they told us that they had among them those that they called wateule. These wateule were supposed to guard you, not to change your mind in that last minute, so that they were helping you to actually cross to heaven. So there is a possibility, I suspect, especially for those children, maybe their parents felt the children are undergoing so much torture, because I can imagine how that child would be crying, out of hunger, and maybe the parent would feel the child is really suffering and they would just end their lives. So there's a possibility that is what happened. There's a possibility those wateule are the ones who actually strangled the children so that they died. But there's also in the postmortem blunt trauma. Blunt trauma is where someone is hit by an object, and then that becomes the cause of death.
Right.
So right now we can only speculate, because that is what the autopsy tells us, but we can't say for sure. We don't know who actually strangled or suffocated the dead ones.
Well, this the case of Paul Mackenzie, and now that you're coming to the security agencies. In 2017, Mackenzie was reported, of course, in Malindi Court, and of course there were him and 20 others, and according prosecution wanted them to be detained at least for 30 days. Then another case that we could remember recently, actually, it was in March. When he was charged, he was reported about the death of two minors. He was later released. Well, right now we are talking 100 and plus bodies so far, and nobody really knows the extent to which this could have, of course, gone, and how many bodies are still out there, and even the victim, even as the rescue mission continue. Now, this begs the question. We have the local chiefs, just like we mentioned, security agencies, we have leaders. Is it possible that this could have, bypassed them without any single knowledge until now at a crisis level like this?
Well, we've been on the ground, as you've correctly put it, and we have engaged some of these leaders, and we've asked those questions. Of course, now it's a blame game, this pointing fingers, but the information that we have is that the local authorities, including the chief and the sub-chief, that they had noticed something was not right, and that they put it in their reports and they shared with their seniors, but there was no response from their seniors. And according to them, the best they could do is to give out these reports, We also have, as you've said, information that the local police were, in fact, the March case is where Haki Africa insisted that we have to rescue a boy, and the police were not very responsive, so we decided to go on our own. And when we managed to get the boy from the cult followers, we took him back to the police, and the boy explained what was happening there.
Right.
That was when now the police started believing and said, okay, let's follow this up.
Okay.
Yeah, because we went there with the family, we went there with the victims, and we said, you have to do something. Listen to what they're telling you. Their child is in there. But they did not give us any support. They did not give any officer to go with us to rescue the boy. So we went there by ourselves. Now, only after we got the boy, and the boy said, in fact, 2 of his siblings had already been killed, or rather had died, and they've already been buried. That is when the police then decided to go to court. They arrested him in March, and took him to court for the killing of the 2. But then those 2, we didn't have any body, we didn't have any evidence. So the police, the court also could not hold him, because you're saying he has killed. Where's the evidence? Where are the bodies? Who has he killed? Yeah? Sorry for that. So it is at that level then when, we asked the courts actually decided, they issued an exhumation order.
All right.
If you're saying people have been killed, here is an order, go and exhume the bodies so that we can have evidence. Then we can charge him with murder. But in the meantime, if there's no evidence of murder or anything, he was released on 10,000 shillings bond.
All right. Well, this is a matter that has even caught the attention of now the national top agent security forces.
Yes.
And in Senate, the Tana River Senator, that is Danson Mungatana, of course, will now chair the ad hoc committee. And this committee, of course, is mandated to investigate the role that Mackenzie played, and the team of his, with a team of his pastors, then the Kilifi County Security Committee in it, in aiding, purportedly aiding and abetting the deaths of church followers. Is this, the right time, of course, to even point fingers to such things and even start to speculating at a time that we believe, like, in a country where we have top national security agencies, these are some of things that could have been prevented there? Why wait until it's out of hand so that you can try to solve issues?
I think what you're saying is very true. I mean, it's very late because we've lost lives, and it's unfortunate that the authorities did not act in good time. And now we have children, women, men who have met their deaths in very troubling ways. But then we say you want to learn from this experience so that it never happens again. So for purposes of learning, for purposes of understanding what happened, then I would say it is good to ask those questions so that we get the answers and we make sure that history does not repeat itself.
All right.
Yeah, but you are right in that this is coming at the tail end when a lot of damage has been inflicted on so many. If you just look at the number of families that are presently searching for their loved ones, it's over 200, 300 that have so far come to register with Red Cross to say they suspect their kin might have been, in this cult. So, yeah, but, despite the fact that, the state authorities, the security authorities failed us, we still need to ask those questions so that, we can guard against something like this ever happening again.
All right. Well, do you have faith in the ongoing operation, of course, now that is being led by CS Interior, Professor Kithure Kindiki?
I would say so far they've done well. It's unfortunate that they have somehow decided to lock out key stakeholders, particularly the journalists, because the journalists were doing excellent work to show what truly happened. And the minimum we can do to the victims is to tell their story. Let the world know what happened to them. And then we fight for justice. So when you lock out journalists and they can't go in, or you say only the state is allowed to go in, then you raise unnecessary suspicion. Why don't you want people to go in? Are you hiding anything? If you're not hiding anything, why isn't it open? The way it was from the beginning, we could see the bodies being retrieved, and journalists were very responsible. They didn't use gory pictures to show to, the viewers. They were very responsible. They took what was allowable in media, within the media limits, and there wasn't anything unbecoming. So now, when they put these restrictions, post-mortem only state is going in, so we can't corroborate whatever they come out to tell us. If they say there are no organs removed, it's the state saying it. We don't know if it's true because we were not there. So if the state is trying to protect itself, we can't tell. We really can't tell, because now it is only the state that is witnessing, it is performing the post-mortem. So these are questions that we definitely need to ask. Whether we have faith, those who trust and believe in the state, they would say yes. But those who don't trust and believe in the state, they would say no. I mean, why are you hiding? Why don't you? It's a post-mortem exercise. The person is already dead. So why don't you want people to be there to witness, So these are valid questions that need to be asked, and, we hope that the state will respond and allow a transparent coverage of what happened there.
All right. Well, because of time, I'll give you now this as your, parting shot.
Thank you so much. First of all, let me appreciate KUTV. You're doing excellent work, and, for allowing Kenyans to understand what is happening and to come to terms with this, because it's a very difficult moment. I think many Kenyans are traumatized by what has happened here. And for me, I would ask my parting shot, ask religious institutions. I think it's time now they took the lead in enforcing self-regulation.
All right.
Let's not wait for the state to come to regulate. You as religious institutions can come forward and make sure you regulate and you guard against the likes of Pastor Mackenzie from tarnishing the image of our religious institutions.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, you spoke about very key important, and we hope that the stakeholders those concerned will take keynote of what is happening and heed to your call. Actually, it's a passionate call and appeal, so that we can move forward as a nation and put all Shakahola massacre behind us. Of course, we take a short break here. When we come back, still we'll be transversing through many more stories, including our sports news. See you in a bit.